Hello and welcome to TCI Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Yasmin Rigby Blues. November is celebrated in the Turks and Caicos as Alcohol Awareness Month. And for this month, we decided to have a chat with the Deputy Director for the National Drug Unit, Mrs. Lester King. Hello, Ms. King.
Hi, Jasmine.
So tell me about the purpose. Why November for Drug Awareness Month? Alcohol Awareness Month.
I think November is a really good month, and I can understand why the TCI has allocated November, because we've got Christmas on our doorsteps, and generally at Christmas time people tend to drink in excess, drink a bit more. People who don't normally drink tend to have a drink because they think, oh well, Christmas is a good reason to have a drink. You know, they say drink and be merry.
Yep. Okay. And for the month of November now, of course it started since last week. Thursday was the 1st of November.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you're doing for the month?
Well, we have planned a workshop. It's going to be 2 separate days. We have somebody coming down by the name of Mrs. Kimberly Jackson, who's going to be the facilitator for the workshop. We're having all the islands participate. We're going to have one workshop in Grand Turk, which will be on the 15th. And the other workshop will be on the 16th of November here in Provo. And people from the other islands will be brought in so that they can participate, so they can go back with the message, you know, and relate the message that they actually got from the workshop, which is about focus on the family, but part of that is about raising the awareness of alcohol use, abuse, and addiction.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what are some of the topics that they'll be looking at?
I mean, I think some of the topics that we'll be looking at will be, you know, alcohol use, because, you know, alcohol is seen as a gateway drug. And I think it's always very important to highlight the dangers of alcohol because, you know, because it's legal, it's accepted, and therefore people tend to think, you know, if they drink a lot, it's okay to drink a lot because nobody really says anything. Whereas if you're a hardcore, perhaps drug users using some of the harder drugs, then, you know, people see that as a drug, whereas alcohol is generally not seen as a drug. And it is a drug. It's the #1 drug of use here.
Yeah, that's something I was about to ask you about. It's the drug unit, and everyone's thinking the drug unit. Why is the drug unit focusing on alcohol? And as you say, it's a gateway drug. And that was brought out during your banquet you held a couple years back.
Last year, yes. Yeah.
The fact that alcohol, I know that you've been having a lot of problems, even to the point where you've had to focus a lot on children. Tell us about it.
Okay. Well, we have had, as you said, we have had difficulties, you know, with young people, underage children drinking. You know, we have been going into the schools. We've now started a very heavy campaign in the schools where we're not just going into the schools, but we're going into the individual classes, a classroom at a time, talking to the children about the dangers of drugs. And, you know, what we are finding is that a lot of children, if you ask, you know, how many of you have tried alcohol? We would say like 99% of the children in the classrooms, this is secondary and primary, are saying, yes, we've tried alcohol. The second question was, well, how did you get that? And a lot of them have been introduced to alcohol by parents, family members. Some have said that they've sneaked it out of the fridge or the cupboards. But 99% of children have tried alcohol. And I think one of the things that we're trying to raise is that alcoholism is a disease, you know, and it runs in families. We raise questions like, if you look at somebody that's considered to be a drunkard or an alcoholic, if you look back, you'll generally find that it runs in the family. You know, that person's father probably drank excessively, grandparent, uncle. So it's to show that alcoholism is a disease, and people who have alcoholism in the family need to be particularly aware that they can also, you know, contract this disease that really, and the disease is about recognizing that when they start drinking, that they can't stop. This is when you get to the point where you can't stop. You know, you have to have one, you have to have it every day. And some people say, well, I don't drink every day. But then you have binge drinkers, you know, people who, they might not drink for weeks, but when they start drinking, they cannot stop. You know.
And there's alcohol awareness in Turks and Caicos, but is the drug unit affiliated with it in any way? That you'd be able to say how well attended, or how many people actually do go?
We have an AA group, and we are affiliated in as much as we share the same space and we exchange information. And there aren't that many people that actually attend the alcohol, because there's a stigma attached to it and people tend not to want to be stigmatized, so they tend not to attend. But it would be nice if people could feel comfortable. It would be, and nice is probably not the appropriate word, but it would be really helpful for them if they could attend the AA group to get some information, to recognize that they're not alone, and they can get some support if they want to try and give up the habit.
Is it just for persons who have a drinking problem, or is it for support for people who've also been affected by parents or spouses?
Well, the AA group generally is main for alcoholics, whereas the NA group, which is run by the drug unit, are for family members, anybody that's affected by it. So you can, if your husband is using, then you can come along, try and get some support, because sometimes the families get forgotten in all of this. People don't realize just because maybe, for example, a brother, sister, husband is using drugs or alcohol, that the family is not affected. And the families are severely affected by this, and they also need support.
Okay. And do you think that the drug unit, government, is doing a lot to sensitize the community to the problems that we're having with alcohol?
I think we are trying, to do as much as we can. But I think, again, it's about, first of all, people acknowledging and taking responsibility. Because if you was to say to somebody, do you know that if you had 3 drinks every day of the week, you are classified as an alcoholic, they'll be horrified. Most people will be, oh, please, you mean 3 bottles? But, that is the stats have been given, that it doesn't take much to be classified. And what people don't recognize is the addiction quality. Because if you have to have a drink every day, then you have a problem. And the other thing is, if someone has said to you, you need to try and stop drinking, then you need to look at, do I have a problem? If, for example, you've said to yourself, I need to cut back, then you recognize that you have a problem. The mere fact that you say, I need to cut back, could be an indicator.
But you have statistics or reports like out of France that says you need to have a glass of red wine because it's good for your heart daily.
Yeah, there are reports out like that, but if people have the possibility of becoming an addict, they need to stay away, because the glass of wine could turn into 2 glasses to 3 glasses. And this is the difference between the alcoholism as a disease and a person who has the ability to perhaps just have 1 glass and stop.
What is the age group or age limit that, I guess it's the age of consent, determines when you're allowed to drink here?
It's 18.
18?
Yes.
Age of consent is 16. Okay.
But alcohol is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've had problems with children as far back as primary schools?
Mm-hmm. We have had children in the primary school that we have been into, and we've said, how many of you have tried alcohol? And we were amazed at how many hands went out. And when we asked them, how did you get it? And a lot of them said they were introduced to it by family. And sometimes I don't think parents or family recognize what they're doing, in as much as, most parents will say to a child, oh, have a sip of this, and, just as part of the culture, but recognizing that that could also be the trigger for that child. If that child drinks it, enjoys it, likes it, then what you find is that when the parents are not there, they'll take a little sip more and a little sip more. We've had reports of children being drunk in school. So, there need to be control. Parents need, and we're not saying, that parents are doing things badly, but, you need to be aware, you need to be alert. If you're keeping drinks in the house, you need to monitor. If you've got 6 beers in the fridge and you go back and there's 5, you need to question who's had that, just in case, yeah.
And is there anything that the drug council, drug unit can do? about such situations?
I think we are. I think, for example, the interview like this, there'll be people that will be watching it and think, you know, yeah, maybe I need to be a bit more cautious. Maybe I need to monitor. And sometimes I think what happens is family are sometimes in denial. You know, they'll go to the drink or whatever they've got there. They think, I'm sure I didn't drink that much, but yet would never think of questioning or monitoring. I wonder if my child might be tampering or taking some of this. And these are the things that parents need to be aware of. If you keep an alcohol at home, monitor it. You know, if you keep going back and the drink is going down and you know you're not using it, you need to sort of get the children in and question them, find out what's going on. One of the messages that the drug unit wants to give out this month is to ask people to abstain, you know, for the month of November, to abstain from alcohol. Try and, you know, keep yourself clean, try and recognize that, you know, alcohol is dangerous. We have a lot of problems with drink driving, we have a lot of accidents, alcohol damages your body, and we're asking, you know, celebrate the month by abstaining from alcohol.
Okay. And so for this month, mainly we're looking at the workshop. Anything else?
We have tried screening in the past where we have gone into the clinics and we have actually talked to some of the big businesses and asked them, you know, would you be prepared to get your staff to do screening? It's not been readily accepted. Most people don't want to get involved in it. They worry about issues of confidentiality and things like that because it is a small island and everybody tends to know everybody, so people tend to be a bit more cautious.
Okay, so, well, we'll have to look forward to it. When are the workshops? The 15th?
The 15th in Grand Turk and the 16th in Provo. And like I said, all the islands have been invited. We've already started doing all the invitations. We have a lot of people coming from all the islands to attend these workshops.
Okay. And you're watching TCI Behind the Scenes with your host, Yasmin Ruby Blues. And this is the beginning of Alcohol Awareness Month. We're going to a break. We'll be back with another guest in a minute. Hello and welcome back to TCI Behind the Scenes, where we're talking about this being Alcohol Awareness Month. And of course, I had to find someone who was affected. But what the real question is, are we really making a difference? Are we really doing anything? Welcome to our guest, Karen Delancey, Honorable Karen Delancey, good friend, cousin of mine. Carding everyone and alcohol establishments. I mean, because the number of them that are around, and of course it grows daily, almost.
Exactly.
And do you think they should display a sign that says, we don't serve to minors?
Of course.
And of course you have places where they have bars, and children go and sit on them. And of course, although I do believe that is an offense, it still happens.
And who's policing it?
Well, we've got more police officers these days.
Also, too, the bartenders could start. People in the bar who know better, they should also tell the parent or just simply say to the child, you know, you can't sit at the bar.
Do you think it's easier in this day and age to talk to children or even their parents about them?
Yes and no. I say yes and no because some parents are open-minded. Okay, they don't mind if you tell them, well, your child shouldn't sit at the bar or you shouldn't send your child to the bar to buy a beer. And then again, you have some parents who say, mind your own business.
That's my child. I sent them there. I'm aware that they're sitting there.
And that's why whatever happens, the parent should be held responsible.
And legislation. Now you're in a good spot for legislation.
I certainly hope so.
Do you see anyone actually supporting moving that drinking age?
It's been tossed around a couple times. No final decision has been made, but it has been tossed around a couple times. Because, for instance, you have to be 21 to own property, but you could vote at 18. So,
Well, the whole thing is, age of consent is at
Yes.
16, and that's something that Gender Affairs has been working on to try and get that, let's see, at least to 18.
Yes.
You can do this, but you can
Can't
have
do
sex,
that,
you
and-
just can't vote. And you may be able to drink.
how does that work? Isn't that something? It's no wonder when children come out of school at age 16, they think, I'm a man or I'm a woman. I can do whatever I want.
Interesting, because there was a case I dealt with in Grand Turk, and it was concerning a young girl that was going astray, and I went to welfare, and welfare said age of consent was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And because age of consent is 16, if she has a problem at home, she can leave.
Mm-hmm.
And her rights would be to take them to court. That welfare also is not really responsible. They would assist, but they're not really responsible because she's at the age of consent.
Isn't that something?
So she can go out and get her own place or do whatever that she wants. And that to me was not the message I wanted to hear, having my daughter at the time, 14 years
Yes.
old, with me to
Yes.
hear that once she turns 16, she can do whatever she wants.
And drink at 17.
But we have a problem right now, most especially with drunk driving.
Yes.
And I know that touches you more than a lot of people that I know. But when you look at it, I remember you trying to get Mothers Against Drunk Drivers coming on. How did that work?
Well, I did contact the Florida chapter to try and get a chapter down here in Turks and Caicos Islands. But that sort of fell by the wayside. And then I contacted Mothers Against Crime, and they were more responsive. I didn't continue because at the time, too, when I did that, I had a ministry, so it was easier to do it through the ministry.
Yes.
But I'm gonna contact them again and try to get a chapter here, because under the umbrella of Mothers Against Crime, it's everything else. It's drugs, it's alcohol, it's teen parenting, the children who witness violence. It's everything falls under that umbrella. So I'd rather go that route than go the other one, Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
And how effective do you think this would be? I mean, as you noted so far, we don't seem to have that kind of a presence